are you? It is Stephanie Van Bark, and I'm a small business owner. And I'm here today on Just Talking Business to talk with a gentleman who, so it's kind of interesting, and why I'm very excited about talking to him is because he's taken sort of what I believe is his passion and really created a really strong business around packaging, which, I think we all think about when it's time to package something, but may not be something that we think about on a regular basis as a business. So we're going to learn a lot today about both the business and both how he's been able to make that a passion. Hi, Jeremy.
Hey, Stephanie, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I was just telling our guests that you are in the packaging space, which is an industry we have not interviewed yet. So I'm really excited about that. And I think I'm going to learn some stuff today, and they will too. So
Excited to be here.
start with who you are and what you do.
Yeah, well, I'll start by saying thanks for your flexibility. As I mentioned before the call, my flight was delayed, so my preparations for this call were unuseful. So now I'm talking to you from the car. But
That's
thanks for
right.
having
We'll be
me.
fun. We'll be fun. We'll have fun.
So yeah, I'm Jeremy Bauer. I'm the founder and CEO of Givr Packaging, and we are, to put it simply, a packaging company that provides custom corrugated and folding carton packaging for the U.S. market.
Okay. So, and just to throw out a thread, I read an article about you. Just to throw out a couple of the clients that you have, because I'm assuming you're a B2B company.
Yep.
Um, I saw names like, let's see if anybody knows what they are: Hershey, Kellogg's, Godiva, and Disney, just to name a few. So, how did you come about getting such great clients? I mean, how do you market to these folks, and how do you get them to say yes for something around packaging?
Yeah. For some of those customers, those have from my career, some of those have been they know of the company that you work for, and so they come in. For the big brands that we've worked with at Givr, um, sometimes it's really serendipity. They
Mm,
will see something that you did, somebody will see something you did, and then they'll tell somebody in the company, and that company will reach out to you. We've gotten calls from some of these are not public, but we've gotten calls from the largest premium luxury goods brands in the world
mhm.
because they saw a box that we did for Snapchat, um, and they're like, we want to do that box. Or they worked with somebody who worked with us. In the case of Chanel, they the person who referred us works at Chanel now and worked with us previously at another
Okay.
company. And so
Okay.
they sort of bring us as their little like friend in the box industry
Right.
when they change companies. And so the folks that grow and build their careers can benefit from us at every business. So we've just kind of gotten lucky. But then there's the cold outreach, the
Mhm.
sales channels.
Mhm.
And then LinkedIn is a growing place for
Mm,
people who are looking for authentic information. And
right.
so is Instagram. So we just put out information. I have a YouTube channel where I talk about boxes and I unpackage boxes. And so people find us everywhere there is content to be consumed.
Now, as I was looking through your website, I noticed that you do something a little different, as I feel. There's a lot of conversation around eco-friendly sustainability, and also it looks like each of these boxes have very interesting designs, if that is what the client wants. How
Mhm.
did you get to that space? Because I read you started in the industry at 17. I would
Yeah.
imagine that wasn't happening at 17, that you kind of figured out we need to do something a little differently.
Yeah, so at 17, I was lifting buckets of pulp for a paper mill, for a chemical company that sold to the paper mills.
Okay.
Um, and so I did that, went to college, got internships actually in engineering and technical sales, graduated, got into technical sales engineering for the chemical industry, selling to the paper side. And then I got recruited out to work for a company that made brown boxes that made um, specialty coatings that make them waterproof but still recyclable. So even at that point, I wasn't in the graphics side. I got
Right.
kind of voluntold to get into the graphics side because uh, the upper management of the company I worked for at the time kind of saw something in me that was like technical acumen mixed with people skills. And I
Okay.
never wanted to be a salesperson. In fact, I sort of bet my career on not getting into sales. But they ended up putting me in charge of an account, Hershey's Chocolate.
Okay.
And I sort of learned the graphic side by fire. I
Okay.
had to sort of figure it out. And from there, I realized that it really is this nice mix of continuous projects that leverage like the technical side as well as the creative side. So, like, there's the structure of a box that has to withstand all of the rigors of transport. But then there's the branding side, there's the art
Well,
side, there's the thinking
it's like,
about
let's do it
marketing.
while it's doing all that.
Yeah, it's like when the person opens this box, what do we want them to experience? And
Right.
that is the creative side. So for me, I find it constantly interesting and constantly evolving and constantly scratching that itch between needing to do sort of the technical, mathy, is that left brain, and also the creative, free flowing, artistic side, which I think is right brain, or maybe I have those mixed up. Um,
One
but
of
yeah, I got
them.
into the graphic side because that's what I was in charge of, and I just had to figure it
Okay.
out.
Okay, nice. And now that's become, is that the largest part of your um, sales requests? Is those companies that really want a special brand, or just really more of those people that want to be able to ship as eco-friendly as I can? What
Yeah,
do you
that's
see
a great.
as revenue
Yeah,
streams?
yeah, it's a great point. We do these sort of what we call brown and round, meaning like the measurements are round, like 12 by 12 by 12, like stock boxes, you might say. We don't really make them as stock boxes, meaning we make a bunch and sit on in a warehouse. But there are occasions where we will send, shipments of a box to a customer that is just their logo, or maybe not even their logo, just a brown box. But from a piece, like pieces out the door and a sales dollar perspective, you're talking about 95 plus percent of everything we do is either custom structures, meaning custom
Mhm.
size and shape, or custom printed, or both.
Okay. So, which I notice also you do audits.
Mhm.
So, if a customer it needs some kind of packaging request, what would that audit look like, and what are you focused on when you're working with that client, and where, how will that save me, or will it in any way?
Yeah,
What's
yeah.
the
There's one example I can think of where the customer submitted an audit and we said, "This is great, and you're paying a good price. Like, stay where you are."
Oh, really?
But most of the time, a customer will come to us and they'll have a goal in mind. They'll say, "Here's what we do now. We're getting breakage. It's 20% breakage, and we can't have that
Mhm.
anymore." So we go through, we analyze what they're doing now, all the way down to we will cut the paper, cut the box apart, and analyze the paper that's in it to tell
Oh,
them whether it's under spec, over spec, and not properly structured. So we will get into the weeds for them, and we will go through all of our normal development cycle with the end goal that they're looking to solve in mind. And at the end of that audit, we have a custom structure for them that's been tested, that's been quoted, and we offer that to them. And if they don't like it, they can take all the die lines and go back to their current vendor and say, "Hey, make this." Our policy and our sort of ethos is, if we haven't earned your business through that process, then we don't deserve it. So that's all free.
okay. And how long does that process take?
Yeah, that's a good question too. It depends on how technical the challenge is. If they're just saying, "Hey, I don't know if I'm getting the best price on this box. Can you tell me if I am? I don't want any changes. Just quote it for me." That can
Mhm.
take, as little as 6 hours.
Right.
That can also take like a week depending on what they're looking for. But if it's a real technical challenge, we've had some customers come to us and we have, it's taken weeks into the months to get everything nailed down and optimized and ship tested and have art made, and to do the color work. So it can be as long as hours or as long as months.
All on your dime.
Yeah, we get into the weeds for these customers.
Wow, that's impressive. And does that turn? I mean that's an interesting concept. I first got into business. There's a book that was out called Free, and it talks about all these free things you can give in order to get the client. Have you found that kind of in the weeds assessment has secured that client for you?
I think our loss rate is in the single digits. And candidly, we have never done it another way. So
Okay.
I don't know if we could charge for that, because it just doesn't seem it seems more of an opportunity for us to impress than an opportunity for us to make money.
Mhm.
If that makes sense. It's
Okay.
just like
Okay.
once they get service by us, it's going to feel
Yes.
weird when they don't get emails responded to by other people. So they're going to be like, you know, but these other guys aren't that good because we want to set the standard by which companies are assuming the box industry operates. So if they do leave and take our stuff to somebody else, we can almost guarantee they're not going to get the level of service that they got from us.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay, so let's go back to you were 17 when you first got into the business. At that time, was that, and then I read you got a degree in paper science. Swear to God,
That's
I didn't
correct.
even know that existed.
Most people
Even the
didn't.
article said the real major. But I mean, it's impressive, and it's definitely one of those industries that you really, you just didn't know. But did you see this trajectory at 17, or you just kind of got put into the places that sent you here?
At 17, I didn't know. All I knew was that I was trying to make money, and the internship after school paid like, I don't know, $14 an hour or something like that. I was like, that's more than I can
Oh,
make at
good.
Taco Bell. Um, and
That's
so
true.
I don't even think I had a path at that point. When I really started to see or have in my mind a path the first time was when I was interning with Hercules Chemical. I think I was maybe a junior at that point, and we sat down with the CEO who had started out in sales, and he was like, "Hey, I did this internship too, and over time I became the CEO." And I was like, "Oh, maybe one day I'll be in charge of something." And then the next internship was at a paper mill, and I had a real good relationship with the mill manager there. And I was like, "Well, maybe I'll be a mill manager," which is like a pretty big deal in the paper industry. Um, and then I got into the box side, and I was kind of like, maybe I'll be a box plant GM. I don't know. So I was just kind of
You just
open.
figuring
It's just kind of open.
right.
If there's water in the pool, jump in, kind of thing. I'm stealing a lot of these sayings from some of my mentors from the past. I'm thinking about them, but yeah, I just was sort of open. I just kind of kept saying yes to opportunities, and I,
Mhm.
I mean, even now, I don't even have a path. I don't even have a plan. The plan now is to take care of my staff and grow the business manageably and not explode to where we can't manage it. And have fun doing it.
Right. And when did the sustainability aspect come to you? Is that a passion of yours that you said, I can lean my passion into this product and really be successful? Or was that just kind of where the industry was going?
Well, the industry, I started to feel the importance of sustainability in the 2012 period. Um, the industry has slowly kind of gone that way. It ebbs and
Mhm.
flows, but in general, I think there's a greater sense of sustainability being a good thing. Um, that really came into play when I was trying to
Mhm.
figure out what I wanted to do when I left the last company. And I was trying to think about what customers were asking me continuously that we didn't have a great answer for. And it was one of the things I thought of was we would routinely get questions when having these like biannual business review meetings with these big brands about the things we were doing for them. And they would always have a question in there. What are you doing about sustainability? And so there's some industry lines that
Mhm.
are always like paper is recyclable, paper is biodegradable, we use recycled paper. And those are kind of anemic, right? It's just like everybody that comes in there to pitch those guys had the same
Mhm.
viewpoint and the same sort of, you could take their
Mhm.
slide deck and our slide deck and it would be the same thing with regard to sustainability. And I was like, what can I do to kind of make a splash and make this interesting? And instead of having it be a supplement of the business, making it be the entire mission of the business. So we
Core.
started
Mhm.
Givr, and we named it Givr because that was the URL that was available that I felt fit. Um, we started Givr
Mhm.
to give brands a way to add that sustainability component into their business without paying for it. So our goal
Right.
is everything we sell is, essentially a commodity. So what we sell, somebody else can sell. So our goal is to sell it at or below what they sell it for with the added benefit of sustainability. And we do that for ourselves. It's not as if we're doing that to gain customers. We're doing that so that we can feel good about what we do, and to add benefit to those companies that want it. Because I think at everyone's core, if you give them the option, this box is $1 and that box is $1, but this box over here offsets all of the carbon used to make it. It's pretty much a
I
no-brainer,
agree.
right? Why wouldn't you do it?
I, I
So
agree.
it was sort of a it was sort of a differentiator, or I wanted to at least try the experiment. But in the end, it became a way for me to feel good about what we're
Okay.
doing.
And I think people think sustainability is more expensive when you think about anything that's better for the environment. So it's good that
Yeah,
you are able to show them that it doesn't have to be.
right.
So, okay, let's get to the pivot plan because that is what this show is all about. So, I have been, and I think we talked about it very briefly before the show because I didn't want you to tell me everything. So, I want you to tell the audience. So, you know, we've had a bit of a shakeup over this last 6 months in our with our administration, looking at both the tariffs and the taking back or rolling back some of the initiatives with regards to sustainability. Have you found that to be a challenge for your business, or foresee it being a challenge in the future?
Well, the rolling back of federal initiatives, not really. In fact, we're small players relative to some of the big names. So any of the big sort of major EPA changes or any of that
Mhm.
has very little effect on us, unless it has a direct effect on like freight, or things like that. The tariffs, April was an interesting time for us. We were
Mhm.
getting we were seeing sales kind of stutter a little bit. And April
Mhm.
is historically kind of a slow month for us in the industry at large. And I
Mhm.
wasn't sure if that was because people were scared to buy boxes for products they weren't sure they would be able to get, or if it was people were scared to spend money because they weren't sure if the cost of their other products were going to go up.
You are.
So
Uh-huh.
there was maybe 2 weeks there where we were having conversations that were either, I don't want to buy this new box for this new SKU because I don't know if the price of that SKU is going to double tomorrow. We were also
Right.
having conversations like, I'm currently getting my boxes from China. Can you help me get them from the States? And so it was kind of one for one. We would, on the same day, we would have a customer say, like, hey, I want to put this project on hold for now. And then the next phone call would be, hey, I need to bring over 35,000 boxes a month from China and bring them stateside because the tariffs are making it impossible for us to get them. And what we found out during that time is we are actually competitive with China now. China's freight, or not China's freight,
Okay.
China's labor rate um, has gone up over the last 10 years. And people have just assumed that if I'm going
Mhm.
to get boxes and I can get them from China, I'm going to do that. But what we found is actually we're not that far off. And if you account for the fact
Right.
that you can come visit the plant, you can watch your boxes being made. There's no ambiguity about them being on a boat for 3 to 7 weeks. There's
Right.
also no
Right.
ambiguity about when they land. Are they going to be the same price they were when you put the PO in? Um,
Right.
so we learned a lot, and we were able to bring some customers on that were sort of tired of the uncertainty around the tariffs.
I was telling you right before I interviewed a gentleman maybe a couple of weeks ago who's in freight. And we had a long conversation about the tariffs, and what he found he had to do was educate his clients and his customers and new customers. Are you finding that you're having to learn that kind of information and share it in order to really allay people's fears and get them to write a check?
Yeah, in fact, we did a white paper on it. Well, not a white paper. We did an analysis that turned into an infographic about it. We've had a couple customers that we were able to onshore, and in both cases, we saved them between 5 and like 12 cents a box.
Oh, wow.
Um, so that, when you, in today's visual age, I could send you a 12-page white paper and you're never going to read it. But when I put it in an Instagram post that's three
Right.
bubbles with information, you're like, oh, done, easy. I can absorb that in 5 seconds, moving on.
I'm calling
Um,
you.
so yeah, I mean, we sort of had to figure out the truth of our offering relative to international imports, and then we were distilling that and pushing that out as quickly as we could. In fact, we had a customer call us and said, hey, here are the tariffs on our boxes. quote these boxes domestically. So we quoted them. And then as soon as we got the quote, I talked to our marketing person and I was like, hey, let's make this infographic. And then, like an hour and a half later, that was on all of our socials
Right.
talking about this happened today. This is the reality. Come
Boom,
get your stuff
boom.
quoted. Yeah.
So it's turned into a really good marketing opportunity for you.
It did. I mean, it turned into an opportunity for us to give information that people were wondering about.
Right.
Whether we closed 100 deals from it or one deal, it was good for us to work through it, and it was good for us to put it out there for people to say, these are the facts. You don't have to guess anymore. This
Right.
is the reality of what tariffs are doing to boxes, so you can draw your own conclusions if you think it's a good fit or not.
So have you ever had a challenge in business where you've had to have a really big pivot and shift?
Um, During COVID, we doubled in
What?
size. In a period of like 6 months, our annual pace doubled. So I went from having one staff in our office to six in our office. And then after that, everything sort of flattened off, and we had to decide, like, are we gonna keep everybody? How do we go about that? And so we had to decide um, how to staff and then how to unstaff. And fortunately, we had some people come on who were uh, in industries that really shut down. So we were sort of helping them and they were helping us to deal with the surge in packaging. And then after the surge took place and everything kind of slowed down a little bit, a lot of those people were able to go back to the industries they started in, which
Good.
was good. We didn't have to fire anybody, which I feel good
Right.
about. But we
Right.
did have to learn how to staff up pretty quickly. I had to figure that out because 6xing your head count in a matter of 3 or 4 months is like pretty stressful.
But why? Like I'm intrigued. Like during COVID, nobody was moving or doing anything. What ticked up? What was the
Yeah.
uptick?
So if you think about it, if you have a product that you buy on a public shelf, we were talking about, was it Jennifer's
Yeah,
breadsticks?
Jennifer's
Jennifer's
bread, Jennifer's
breadsticks. We're
homemade.
talking about Jennifer's breadsticks. So she's selling those in, let's say, a 24 pack to Publix, right?
Mhm.
Well, Publix, their sales fell off because nobody was going out. Everyone was ordering direct to consumer. So instead of that box containing 12 of Jennifer's breadsticks, now people are ordering Jennifer's breadsticks. This may not be the best example, but from Amazon or
Right.
somewhere where they're getting a single unit of it. So instead of Jennifer's breadsticks buying one 12-pack master case, now they have to buy 12 single pack direct to consumer boxes.
Right.
And we
Right.
saw that trend across almost all of our customers. Some of the retail customers stayed, but the volumes diminished, and we had to sort of scramble and get everybody into direct to consumer, even if they hadn't been in it since. And so our volume from a dollars and pieces perspective went up, and we were also really good at direct to consumer. We had been
Mhm.
doing it for a couple of years, so we were very good at taking any product, no matter how fragile, and making it suitable for direct to consumer. And
Okay.
so people knew that about us, and they came clamoring to us.
Right.
And so we had to figure out, like, design bottlenecks, sales bottlenecks, operational bottlenecks. We had somebody that was just dedicated to freight. We had two customer service people. My chief of staff was customer service, and we had another customer service person. Um, and so it was more of like, what hole in the ship do we have to plug today with talent? It's like,
But see,
these guys haven't gotten a quote in 3 days. We have to figure this out. And some of that was process, but some of it was just, let's put people in place so we can develop processes that are more long standing.
and as you grow, those processes will still be in place.
Exactly. Right.
So cool, very cool. And you were saying before your business has gone up at the beginning of it, this year. So that's been
Yep.
great. What about the industry? Is the industry struggling? Um, or are you the opportunity? Are you the person who found the opportunity to be successful? How is that working?
The industry at large is sort of flat. Projections for this year are like plus or minus 2%.
Oh wow.
Shipments in the first quarter were down year over year, and so there's some sentiment to say, like, box shipments are sort of leveling off to flat. Um, we're a small player relative to these big guys.
Mhm.
So for us to gain that much market share they're not even going to miss it, So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
industry, I think, is flat, give or take. But we could grow 10,000% and like still probably not be on their radars because we're just we're doing our own thing. We're not trying to take down um, Amazon. We're not trying to go get all of the boxes for Amazon. We're helping brands that are starting or in their sort of growth inflection phase.
Mhm.
Um, and so we are outpacing the industry, but we're also small. So getting market share is pretty easy for us.
So what's the plan now? Where do you want to go from here? Do you want to be competitive with the larger brands or kind of stay boutique at this point?
Well, we're competitive with the big brands. We're just not going after their big customers. So if a customer is, the largest manufacturer of boxes in the country, and now the world is International Paper. If we go to Pepsi, for example, and say, hey, we want to do all of your brown boxes across all of your manufacturing plants, they're going to say no. Um, but if we go to, one of our larger customers who does canned milks, um, and we quote their business, we can quote it and be very competitive with International Paper.
Okay.
Um, so we're not targeting those Fortune 500 companies. If they come to us, like we talked about before, the big luxury people, um, we're going to service them. We're going to do a great job for them, but we're not actively targeting those huge monster brands um, because we don't need to. We want to help. We want to inject ourselves into companies where we can bring tremendous value to them, and they get outsized value for working with us.
Okay.
Um, so in that way, we differentiate ourselves from these huge big brands. Um, but there's nothing to say that we can't take business from them because we have horsepower too.
Okay. Okay. Now, talk to a brand new entrepreneur. What would your first advice be? What would you suggest? Any industry doesn't even matter. What would you recommend for a new entrepreneur?
Oof.
That's a
Hoard
lot,
your cash. Hoard your cash.
right?
Don't spend money on stuff you don't see a return on.
Mm,
Um, we see this a lot with companies who raise money. They will go out and they'll staff up a big staff.
mhm,
You can do a lot with 1099 contractors. You can do a lot with small agencies. You can do a lot with independent contractors. Keep your fixed costs as low as possible. Once you get to a tremendous amount of overhead every month, it becomes very difficult to weather any sales downturns.
mm,
Um, so you should be targeting, I'm going to just put a random number out there, $1 million per employee that you have, $1 million per W-2 employee that you have. Um, so if you have 3 employees and you're only doing $300,000 in sales, you may want to consider
right, right,
doing
right.
something different, hiring an agency or hiring a contractor that works 10 hours a week instead of having that huge
Yeah.
overhead burden. Because even though you may be growing double, double, double every year, if you're not hitting that sort of financial metric per person, you can really get into trouble when there's a downturn.
I just read an article of a young lady from Fortune that said, um, "Act like you're poor, act like you're broke,
Yeah,
build a business like you're rich." I was like, "Okay, good
yeah,
theory, good theory,
yeah.
good theory."
Have a,
And
a good saying.
but that's challenging to do. So, we were talking a little bit about it. I'm a service industry, entertainment, all the kind of things. And probably the most expensive thing I pay for is what we're on right now. But you, like as a manufacturer, there are definitely costs and expenses and investments you have to make that, may or may not even sell, as we are talking about with our friends. So,
Mhm.
how have you been able to put together a structured strategy to really combat that, or are you just always kind of reacting to the market and the costs and the expenses?
Yeah, so I think of that, and I got trained on how to do this sort of when I worked for the corporate world. When we're making an investment, it's one of two things. We cannot operate without it because it slows us down not to have it,
Mhm.
and we can't service our customers without it. Or if we have it, we will make money by having it versus not having it, and making that money will pay for it in this period of time.
Okay.
standard ROI calculations. If we're not going to get payback in 2 years, we're
Mhm.
probably not going to invest in it. Now this isn't attributable to people, like, per se. Like, you're not going to get a return on investment necessarily for having a customer service person. That is something that you need to service your customers. But for example, like a piece of
Right.
equipment, if you're going to buy a digital printer, for example, if you can buy that product and make margin on it that is better than you will make by buying your own printer, you should probably not buy that printer. Um, right
Right.
now we're sort of in this phase where I think the big investment we do next is probably our own building. Right now we rent a building, because
Okay.
the business can support XYZ rent a month. So just like, thinking about buying a house or renting a house, at a certain point you want to invest in your own future. And so for the business, I think we can start
Correct.
thinking
Have
about,
your own asset.
yeah, have our own asset. And then, if the business sells, then the building can either go with it, or it can be separate, or you just start to you just start to build up your own castle at that point. Um, and so that's probably the next big thing we'll do. Although there's some other, like, question mark equipment that we may get into, but we'll see. That's the fun part of being a CEO, or maybe the stressful part, is that
Right, exactly, exactly.
you
You
don't
know, try
know.
to make the right decision all the time. It's kind of tricky. It's kind of tricky. And we were just
Right,
talking about that the other day. I was in a group of entrepreneurs, and when is it time to rent and when is it time to buy? We really need to look at how we can use these buildings as an asset. So that's
right.
good. That's a good move. That's a good move. Well, I thank you so much for doing this today.
Of course.
I know you had other things to do, but you took a few moments with us, and I appreciate it. Before you go, can you tell us how we can find you?
Yeah. So the company's Instagram handle is GivrPack, GivrPack, which is also our URL, GivrPack.com. You can find us on YouTube. I think it's same thing. And then Facebook is the same thing. My personal Instagram is Box Builder with no E.
Okay.
Um, and then you can also look us up on Google, just Givr Packaging, GIVR Packaging, and I don't think there's anything else that's going to pop up.
Right, I agree. It doesn't. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining us. And go home, enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you so much. We'll definitely try to get this out to the rest of the world. It was very interesting.
Thanks, Stephanie.
You're welcome. So, everybody, thank you for joining us today. We will be back next week with another fabulous entrepreneur. But we thank you again for tuning in, and we hope you will have a fantastic weekend. It is Juneteenth today. Actually, I forgot to say happy Juneteenth. But we hope you'll have a wonderful holiday weekend, and see us on the next side. Have a great day, everyone.